Honor, for giving me the opportunity of defending my husband, basically. My name is Katarina Majdanjuk-Filip. I'm a neurologist. I'm a citizen of this country. And all over the report, my name is there. And basically, nobody wants to hear what I had to say.
Before she even speaks a full sentence, you can already feel how emotionally loaded this moment is. This isn't a trained witness. This isn't an attorney. This is a wife walking into a courtroom carrying 8 months of stress, fear, and unresolved trauma. She's not here to debate technicalities. She's here to save her husband's future. This case sits right at the intersection of 3 volatile forces: domestic violence law, mental health, and the criminal justice system's zero-tolerance structure. And those 3 rarely coexist peacefully. When the state steps in on a domestic case, it stops being family business and becomes the people versus the defendant. That shift alone changes everything. You're about to hear her argue that sleep deprivation triggered behavior changes, that police misinterpreted the situation, that medical intervention should have happened instead of jail, and that the system ignored her voice entirely. But the court already has something powerful on record: a guilty plea. That's the shadow hanging over everything you're about to hear.
Excuse my emotions and my accent, but this case has been taking a toll on our mental health. So I come in front of you basically just like Esther went in front of King Ahasuerus. I come in front of you as an authority, and I hope that you will hear what I have to say. And I want justice. I want this case to be dismissed. Christian is not only my husband. He's not only the love of my life, father of my children. He's my best friend. He's my support. He's the person I find comfort and understanding. He has been by my side for the past 12 years since we met. He has been by my side through a residency, a fellowship, my board exam, through being an attending, through working in the system. He has been there and supported me. He wiped my tears, and he has been there for all my historical moments, and I can have a lot of those. He's one of the smartest people, one of the kindest people I have met. He's a magna cum laude student. He's a med school graduate, just like I am. He has a big heart. He's honest and empathic. He's always there for anyone that needs help. He's not a criminal, and I will not allow anyone to treat him like this. What has happened 8 months ago happened in the midst of sleep deprivation for more than 4 weeks. Do you know what led to this? It was basically his big heart. He came up with the idea of buying a house for my parents. They live in an apartment in a cage, how he calls it. My mom has metastatic cancer, and he wanted her to have a better quality of life. He wanted her to be able to spend time in the garden and breathe fresh air. It was his idea. That's his big heart. What has happened after? It was a lot of stress brought by trying to remodel the house in less than a month and a half and dealing with his job. That brought a lot of stress and led to insomnia. He was sleeping 1 to 2 hours, maximum 3 hours per night for more than 4 weeks. Do you know what sleep deprivation does to your brain? Are people of Michigan aware what happens with the chemistry of the brain if a person is sleep deprived for a prolonged period of time? It leads to changes in behavior. I myself was super stressed about all this house remodeling. I was also in a period of fasting, and I was very irritable. As a neurologist, I should have known better and recognized the problem. Unfortunately, I was not able to think clearly at that time myself due to poor quality of sleep and stress. This state led to that event, and now 8 months later, we are still dealing with these consequences. Let me ask you something, people of Michigan, and especially the prosecutor's box. Do you have a perfect family? All you that are married, you have not had any disputes in your family?
Ma'am,
I know.
ma'am, I'm just going to caution you one thing. Address the court. I don't want you addressing any of the parties that are in the court.
I apologize, Your Honor.
This interruption might seem small, but legally, it's huge. In court, who you speak to matters. The defendant, the prosecutor, the judge. Each has a different role, and crossing those lines can derail proceedings. Judge Simpson stepping in here isn't about rudeness. It's about control of the courtroom and preserving procedural order. But emotionally, this is devastating for her. She's trying to appeal to the humanity of the prosecutors, not their job title. She wants them to see her husband as a sleep-deprived doctor, not a case file. And the judge is reminding her, this is not a debate. This is a legal process. Notice what's happening psychologically. She's speaking from trauma. The judge is responding from structure. Those two languages rarely translate. Also important, she's already planted the theme of no perfect families. That's a dangerous line legally. Courts do not excuse criminal conduct because relationships are complicated. They look for statutory elements: assault, threat, obstruction, or resistance. Feelings don't negate charges.
But there is no perfect family. We have to be honest. Everybody has discussions in their family. And if there is somebody that thinks you are in some sort of danger because that's what they think, and call the police, you're basically done. When the police showed up at our door, I just came from shopping. If I thought I was in danger, I would have stopped at the police station and I would have called for help if that was the case. And when the police came to our house, one of them told me, "Ma'am, this is not enough for us to arrest him." Well, I didn't want him to be arrested. What I wanted, and our understanding, was to take him to ER. He needed that kind of help. He needed to sleep. That's what I requested. You know, the ambulance was there at the scene, and the lady, the EMT, came and told me, "We'll let police take him to ER so you don't have to pay a bill." How I wish I would have paid that bill and not be here today. Little did I know what that meant. And I want you to be aware that the first thing I did that night and the following day was to look for him in ER. I called U of M ER and St. Joe's ER. He was sleep deprived. And I have articles in my possessions that support that sleep deprivation can cause behavioral changes. And the treatment is just sleep. The treatment he got was arrest, 7 weeks of jail and 8 months of hell now.
This is where her argument becomes medically logical, but legally fragile. She's framing this as a healthcare failure, not a criminal case. Sleep deprivation, behavioral changes, misdiagnosis, wrong pathway of care. From a neurological standpoint, she's not wrong. Extended sleep deprivation can cause emotional instability, impulsivity, and impaired judgment. But the criminal justice system doesn't ask, why did it happen, first. It asks, what happened? And that's the brutal divide. Hospitals treat causes, courts treat actions. When police arrive, they're not evaluating brain chemistry, they're evaluating risk, tone of voice, physical movement, compliance, threat perception. And once an arrest is made, the system moves like a freight train. Prosecutors inherit the case, judges inherit the record, and the original medical context becomes secondary.
And my question is, what information was given to the ER provider that led to a misdiagnosis? From my standpoint as a physician, the information I have provided to the police officer would have been enough for an admission. And now he's also being accused of R&O. I was there, and I know he was not resisting. He was being pushed back and forth, and the car camera could not catch the scene. We don't have the body cameras available to our review. Everybody goes by the report of the police officers, but nobody listens to me. Nobody listens to what I have to say. I feel like as a citizen of this country, a democratic country, I should have a word to say. Is the word of the police officers the law? That is my question. And again, I'm here to support my husband and stand by his side. I know him, but nobody else does. I know him the best. And if I felt I was in danger, I would have done something. And I was told that a lot of women cover all this domestic violence because they don't have anything to put on the table for their children. This is not our case. This is not our case. I'm a physician. I think I make enough to support my family. And as I said, this was an isolated event, and I don't know why, despite of the fact that I have made it very clear this is not a domestic violence and I have nothing against my husband, the prosecutor's office stays against me and my husband, and they keep accusing him. This man is a med school graduate. He has dreams. Now he's unable to pursue his dreams, to go to med school or a PA school because he has all these accusations on his record. Nobody can get a license in this country, in this state, if they have an unclean record. And I don't know what they have to gain accusing us.
This is the real cost most people never see. Criminal records don't just punish the present, they permanently rewrite the future. Medical licensing boards, physician assistant programs, hospital credentialing committees, they all perform background checks. Even dismissed cases can require explanation. Convictions can end careers before they start. So when she says society will lose 2 smart people, she's not exaggerating. She's describing a documented pipeline collapse. But here's the legal problem. Courts are not allowed to adjust guilt based on career potential. Justice is supposed to be blind to intelligence, education, and social contribution. That's intentional. Otherwise, wealthy or highly educated defendants would receive softer treatment. So the judge can sympathize, but cannot legally prioritize his career over the alleged victim's protection. That's why emotional logic fails in court.
This society will lose 2 smart people, myself and my husband, 2 smart kids that have dreams, and they want to become doctor and vet. That's what the society will have to lose. Thank you for listening. And again, I apologize if I was a bit more impulsive, but it has been a very difficult period of time for us. And I feel that things happen against my will. And again, I know my husband the best.
I'm not sure what you feel has happened against your will.
I do not have anything against my husband. I'm not accusing him of domestic violence. And
ma'am, at some point you must have been, and at some point he must have agreed with that. And here's the reason why I say that. Back on June 27th of 2023, he pled to a DV and also to an attempted resisting and obstructing. He pled to that.
This is the moment her entire narrative collides with legal reality. A guilty plea is not casual. It is a sworn admission in open court that the elements of the crime occurred. Judges do not accept pleas unless the defendant confirms understanding, voluntariness, and factual basis. That means the court already has his own words on record. So when she says nothing happened, Judge Simpson is legally cornered. He cannot erase a plea because someone later regrets it. Motions to withdraw pleas are granted for narrow reasons: ineffective counsel, misunderstanding rights, coercion, procedural defects, not because someone says he's a good man. That's why the judge says it's difficult to accept that nothing happened. Not emotionally difficult, legally impossible. Here's the key question for viewers. If someone pleads guilty to escape jail pressure, fear, or confusion, is that justice? Or is it legalized surrender? Because plea bargains resolve over 90% of criminal cases in America, and most never see a trial.
I understand, Your Honor, but
after being explained all of his rights, he pled to that. And the only reason that we're here right now is because there was a motion to set aside that plea.
Correct.
So, and I get it. I mean, he wants it set aside for the plea, but the plea was set aside for other reasons other than I didn't do it. They was set aside for other reasons other than that. And so, while I hear you, it is a bit difficult for this court to think that nothing happened.
I understand.
He might be the most wonderful person in the world, but he can't come to me and tell me nothing happened, because I heard it from his mouth.
If I may say something, we have to have in mind that a lot of times there can be a language barrier. And
No. Not going to be used. Don't even try it.
Okay.
Don't even try it, because if I had not understood something or had gotten the feeling he didn't understand me, the plea would have stopped. I would have gotten an interpreter.
Okay.
That's the way I always work. So don't even try that game with me.
Okay.
I heard his plea.
This response is classic Judge Simpson: blunt, procedural, and final. He's protecting the integrity of the plea process. Courts are required to stop proceedings if a defendant doesn't understand the language, rights, or consequences. Interpreters are mandatory when comprehension is in doubt. By saying this, the judge is asserting, "I verified understanding. I followed protocol. This plea stands." From a legal standpoint, he's closing a door. From an emotional standpoint, he's slamming it. This is also where frustration becomes visible. Judges see hundreds of defendants claim misunderstanding after consequences appear. Many are genuine. Many are strategic. The court treats both the same. Now consider this. If courts reopened pleas every time someone regretted them, the system would collapse. But if courts never reopen them, innocent people can be trapped. There is no perfect solution, only trade-offs.
He might be the most wonderful person in the world. That's fine.
Yes.
But I heard his plea. So it's a bit difficult you coming before me, and I don't know what happened. I can just go on what people are telling me. I heard him. He told me.
Right. He was misadvised at that time.
What?
He was misadvised at that time.
Ma'am, you know what? Sometimes you have to stop making excuses. And at some point, you say, this is what happened. And then you figure out how you're going to deal with it. Everything in this whole circumstance, the reason this case is here, the reason all of these things are happening is not because he didn't do anything. Something. Now, I'm not saying he's guilty of the offenses. I'm not even saying that. But something happened.
I understand, but what I don't understand is why can someone, like the prosecutor's office, continue the accusations despite of me saying I know what happened and I know what led to this, and I'm very aware of that.
Ma'am,
I don't know the law.
I don't, right, but I don't know what individual conversations have occurred in this case. I can tell you, you're not being treated any differently, no better, no worse, as far as I can tell. He's not being treated any better or worse by the prosecutor's office. And ma'am, sometimes maybe there has to be a recognition that, particularly in domestic violence cases, that something happens, something which would constitute a DV. I'm not even saying in this case it did happen, because I'm not making any finding. But things happen. Then, for whatever a couple's reasons are, they attempt to try to reconcile. That may involve forgiveness for something that's occurred. It may involve something else. Whatever the reason is. But as they start to come back together, that doesn't mean something didn't happen.
Right, I understand, and I'm not saying it.
Their job, and I say their, the prosecutor's office, they put forth the interests of the people of the state of Michigan.
This explanation is the core philosophy of domestic violence prosecution. The state does not represent the wife, it represents society. That's why cases continue even when victims recant, because statistically, recanting is common in abusive dynamics, due to fear, finances, emotional attachment, or pressure. Judge Simpson is outlining the grim reality. If prosecutors dropped cases every time a victim defended the defendant, many victims would return to unsafe situations, and some would be killed. That's not courtroom drama. That's historical data. So the prosecutor's job is preventative, not emotional. They aim to stop patterns before they escalate. But here's the tragedy. That same system can trap families who genuinely experienced a one-time crisis. So the system is designed to protect the many, even if it destroys the few. Is that justice or necessary collateral? There is no clean answer.
Not you, but the people of the state of Michigan. certainly the interests of the people of the state of Michigan are to try to do our best to make sure that victims of domestic violence don't continue to be victims of domestic violence.
Correct.
And sometimes what that requires is taking a very hard line on what they do with cases, despite what may be a recanting of what was said earlier by the alleged victim. That's their job. Because I'll tell you something, ma'am, I've been sitting up here on the bench for I don't know how long, but many, many years. And I'm going to tell you that if they responded the way you want them to respond, there'd be a lot of primarily women out there who would continue to be victims of domestic violence, if not dead. That's the reality. And that's the reality that they have to deal with.
Right. I do.
So you can be as critical as you want. If you're looking for me to be critical along with you, not going to happen.
No, I'm not looking for anyone to be critical. I'm trying to make people think outside of the box, to try to put the puzzles together, not take a piece of puzzle and say that's the image, because it's not.
That's why we have trials. That's why we have trials to figure out what happened in a particular case. But you want them to make a decision prior to it even getting there, prior to them even hearing any witnesses, prior to them hearing everything. And you want them to make a decision, quite frankly, based upon your excuses for him. Doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work that way. And won't.
It's easier to be a doctor than to be a lawyer, I guess.
Well, if you like the demotion of being a doctor, that's fine. Because I prefer being a lawyer. I prefer the system that we have, the system I believe and have faith in works. If everybody does their job, and that includes the prosecutor, that includes defense counsel, that includes me. If everybody does their job, I believe that it works. To my core, I believe that it works. But it doesn't work based upon emotion for one side or the other. It is a very dispassionate system in that respect.
This is the philosophical heart of criminal law. The system is intentionally cold, not because judges lack empathy, but because empathy creates inconsistency. If emotion ruled decisions, identical crimes would produce wildly different outcomes based on sympathy, appearance, or storytelling ability. So the system trades compassion for predictability. That protects defendants and victims, but it devastates families who live inside the gray areas. Her frustration about not being contacted makes sense emotionally. Legally, she is not a party to the case. The defendant is, the state is, she is a witness. That distinction feels insulting, but it defines due process.
And sometimes that rubs people the wrong way, but that's the way it's supposed to be. Prosecutor's office isn't supposed to be acting out of emotion. Defense counsel is not supposed to be acting out of emotion, and certainly I am not. I get you may want us to, but that's not how it works.
But if somebody represents someone, how come nobody gets in contact with that person? Why that person has to ask to discuss and tell their opinion and not be treated as it should? If my name is all over the report, I would have expected from the very beginning somebody to get in touch with me, somebody like the prosecutor.
And they may, ma'am. I mean, this case has gone, I took a plea, it went to the other judge for sentencing. There's also a request to move to withdraw the plea. It had to come back to me. I looked at that. Counsel for the defendant had to file a couple of briefs to me. I then made my ruling and issued an opinion permitting him to set aside his plea. That's why we're here where we are now.
Right.
All right. At some point, they may or may not reach out to you. That, quite frankly, is not my That's not part of my bailiwick and what I have to deal with. What I have to deal with is trying to make sure everybody's here. Case moves along. That's my job. So I don't know. I understand you wanted to address the court, but ma'am, I don't know what you want me to do.
I want this case to be dismissed. The DV.
I don't have the authority to do that.
This is the final wall. Judges cannot dismiss charges simply because someone asks. Dismissal authority belongs to prosecutors or trial outcomes. His role is limited. That's the cruel truth of legal structure. No matter how compelling her speech is, no matter how much pain is visible, the machine does not stop. At best, negotiations can reduce charges. At worst, trial proceeds. And this family remains trapped inside uncertainty. So here's the question. Should judges be allowed more discretion in cases involving medical crises and family testimony? Or would that undermine equal justice?
At this stage, I do not have the authority to do it. Or anything else? Thank you. All right.
Yes, Your Honor. I have spoken with APA Hughes, and we're in the process of negotiations. And I have pled to her and addressed the fact that, it's a case by case, and I see clearly vigilantly that the complainant does not want this case to move forward. Either way, we are requesting an adjournment so we can hopefully have a resolution by the next hearing date.
Like I care. No. Yeah. That's gonna work just as well. Yeah.
Sorry.
Sometimes it's like running your head into a wall. What? I can't use that? No, I can. Because it really doesn't hurt initially, but then after a while you're dumb. It doesn't matter. And then I've been a lawyer a long time. I know I'm on the record, but when somebody insults my profession and all of my friends that are in my profession, it don't work.
This case is a collision between human reality and legal design. On one side, a wife describing exhaustion, illness, fear, regret, and a system that never listened. On the other, a court bound by records, guilty pleas, procedural safeguards, and the duty to protect future victims, even when the present victim disagrees. Judge Simpson did not declare guilt or innocence here. He declared limits. Limits of authority, limits of discretion, limits of emotion inside law. Her husband's plea legally anchors the case. Her testimony emotionally challenges it, and the prosecutor's duty stands between them. No villains, no heroes, only consequences. If you found this case as shocking as we did, make sure to hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more jaw-dropping courtroom breakdowns.